Hi everybody, Andrew back for another Barista Basics video. Now before I get into today's video, of course I need to make my disclaimer that any opinions stated in my videos are my own. I'm not here to represent Starbucks or any other corporation or impede on any of these companies' intellectual properties or trademarks. My videos are just meant for fun and educational purposes. So, with the disclaimer out of the way, we can go ahead and get into today's topic, which is all about non-dairy milk alternatives. So if you recall a few episodes ago, when I was speaking about lattes, I mentioned some popular alternatives to milk that you can use in your latte. And so I was working at Starbucks earlier today, hence the shirt, and I was thinking about that video and what I wanted to do for today's video, and that begged the question, well, how exactly do they make these alternative milks? So several hours of research later, I have come to a pretty interesting conclusion, which is that essentially anything that you can make a non-dairy alternative milk out of goes through the same 4 steps. Of course, there are certain exceptions and caveats to certain steps regarding certain plants, but I will go ahead and specify those, of course, when we get there. So, enough suspense, I can go ahead and show our cheat sheet. After I fix my hair a little bit, I can show our cheat sheet, which has the 4 steps that I was previously alluding to. And these steps, in order, are soaking and draining, blending with water, straining, and then finally chilling and serving. So, our first step is perhaps the most crucial in our process, because many of the plants used in non-dairy milk alternatives are high in something called phytic acid, and this specifically relates to essentially everything that I have listed at the bottom except the coconut. And so what phytic acid is, it is how it's a popular way, it's the most common way that plants store their phosphorus in their cells. And so how phytic acid relates to humans is that it does not help in the absorption of certain minerals. So say for example, we have, a stray calcium or zinc or iron ion going through our digestive tract, and along comes a phytic acid. Instead of this mineral getting absorbed into our body, which is of course helpful, the phytic acid would attract it and it would eventually be excreted. So soaking helps to decrease, of course, the amount of phytic acid, which essentially aids in the digestion of our milk alternative. Now soaking is also a useful step. I can fix this lighting a little bit. Soaking is also a useful step simply because it helps to soften our plant before we blend it. And how we go about soaking our plants is we submerge them completely with water, some slightly salted water, because this helps aid in the softening process as well as the extraction of phytic acid. And we let this chill out overnight. Now there are certain plants that require less time, but the general rule of thumb is soaking overnight. And so after we have soaked, we are then going to drain all of our phytic acid rich water, and that leaves us with our greatly softened plant. Now before I move on to the next step, I can go ahead and talk about some exceptions to this first step. Regarding what I have on the bottom, first, you can skip this step if you are making chia seed or flaxseed milk, simply because these seeds are so small that they would become slimy and pretty not enjoyable through soaking. So you want to skip it for those. You can also circumvent this step if you either cook rice, which is a type of grain, beforehand, or if you cook quinoa, which is a type of pseudo-cereal, beforehand. And so if you cook these, how you normally would if you were to make it for lunch or dinner, you can skip this soaking step and go straight into blending. Now, I specifically have called out soy here because it absolutely does not need to be soaked. Certain types of coconut don't need to be soaked as well. And this is because coconut as well as soybeans do not contain very much phytic acid. And they are also already pretty soft, so soaking is not necessary. Regarding coconut specifically, using fresh coconut flesh is one way to circumvent this step, but if you use some sort of dry manufactured coconut product, you may simply want to soak it for a little bit just to soften it a bit. So after we have potentially soaked and drained our plant, we are then going to blend this with water in a blender. And so this, of course, acts as the mixing of these two substances. So after we have combined our substances into one mixture, we can then strain the mixture. And so straining, of course, is very useful if you want your resulting milk to have a much smoother consistency. Straining through something like a cheesecloth would be the best. Essentially, the more fine, the better, because that results in a smoother final product. So a little interesting caveat regarding this third step, our straining step, is simmering. And this is only meant for soy, which is partly why I also chose to specifically call soy out in the first step as well, since it's kind of the black sheep of this alternative milk making process. So the reason why we want to simmer our soy milk after we have strained it is because we want to get rid of even more fat. And so simmering helps us with this because eventually a film will start to form on top of the soy milk. And of course this film is the fat, which we want to avoid in our soy milk specifically, because it will result in an even smoother and an overall higher quality soy milk. So, of course, simmering creates this film, which is easy to skim off. So after we have strained our mixture and potentially simmered it, we then decant it, chill it, and then serve it at our convenience. So if you choose to make your own milk alternative at home, depending on what plant you use, the shelf life of your milk will of course vary. You can Google this depending on whatever specific plant you choose to use. Now I'm trying to think if I had any other differing information or any specific information regarding a certain plant. No, but that did remind me that I should mention, of course, that you can add any sort of additive you want into your milk alternative. You know, if you want to add some simple syrup or some sugar to sweeten it, or some flavor-infused simple syrup to sweeten it as well as add some flavor, or, you know, simply adding some sort of vanilla bean powder or cinnamon powder, nutmeg, you know, whatever. Anything you can really think of. If it suits your taste, you can add it into your milk alternative, and that'll make it even tastier for you. So yeah, with all of that said, I can go ahead and conclude our video. Oh my gosh, I hope my hair was not like that the whole time. Sorry about that. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, of course. I hope that you learned something interesting, and more importantly, I hope that this video inspires you to create your own milk alternative at home. I guess you could call me a little bit of a phony because I have never actually made my own alternative milk. And that is simply due to the fact, well, two reasons. One, I prefer dairy milk, and I didn't realize how easy these steps were until today. So I think I will try to make one of these alternative milks pretty soon, and I'll let you guys know how that turns out. Similarly, you guys can let me know in the comments below if you choose to make any milk alternative. and you know, you can share your trials and your tribulations, your successes, your failures, and we can all learn from each other. With all of that said though, I hope that you guys are having a great start to 2020, a great February. It's almost halfway through February, which is absolutely crazy. I also hope that you are having a great semester if you're in school. If not, I simply hope that you're just having a great day. And I thank you guys so much for checking the video out, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.